We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Danielle Afsorda. I'm the Community Outreach Archivist for the CALS Butler Center for Arkansas Studies. Welcome to Legacies and Lunch, What We Wore, Fashion and Photos, 1850s to 1929. This is a monthly program currently being held at UA Little Rock downtown. Thanks so much to Marta and Emily on staff here for facilitating that every month. And we feature talks on Arkansas-related topics. If you're joining us in person and you parked in our parking garage, we have stickers to validate your parking, so be sure to stop by the front table for that. And if you missed it, there are cookies and drinks also, so be sure to grab a treat. And before we get started, I just want to share a few announcements from the Butler Center. We're having Women's History Month programs across the system, so we hope to see you out there. Tonight, I will be sharing the history of Arkansas suffrage, and attendees will have an opportunity to make a suffrage pennant at the CALS Fletcher Library from 6 to 7:30. No registration is required, so feel free to just pop in. And you can also visit cals.org for the rest of our month's programming. And also, Second Friday Art Night this month will be on March 14th from 5 to 8 p.m. We are now hosting that at the Rocket Lab, which is across the CALS old parking lot. Here, it's kind of that triangular shaped building you may know as the Cox building. We've got free drinks, music, art, and more. And this month, we'll be celebrating 20 years of CALS being a part of Second Friday Art Night. We'll have lots of free fun with artists from the dedicated visual art studio and gallery hosting a free live screen printing of a poster or a t-shirt honoring the 20 years of participation. You can bring your own pre-washed shirt or one will be provided for you. And today we are joined by Heather Register Zbinden for What We Wore, Fashion and Photos. What do clothes in photographs tell us about Arkansas women? Did Arkansas women conform to the fashion trends of the day, or was fashion superhighway delayed because of geography and economics? Fashion historian Heather Zbinden will investigate these questions using photographs from the CALS Butler Center-owned collections as she traces the evolution of women's fashion trends from the 1850s to 1929. Heather Register Zbinden is our adult programming coordinator here at CALS. She has a master's degree in public history from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock and has worked on public history projects in Central Arkansas for over 20 years. She worked on Life Interrupted, the Japanese-American experience in World War II Arkansas, as well as projects at the Old State House Museum, the Central High National Historic Site, and the Mosaic Templars Cultural Center. Her thesis is the biography of Katherine Carson Breckinridge, wife of United States Minister to Russia from 1894 to 1898. And the thesis includes a material culture study of Breckinridge's court gown, which is part of the Old State House Museum collection. If you have questions as we go along and are joining us via Zoom, please put your questions in the chat, and we'll alternate in-person and virtual questions at the end of Heather's talk. I'll let her take it away. Thank you.
You, Danielle. And thanks everybody for being here. This is exciting. This is an exciting crowd. You know, for several years, a couple of years, I was the Legacies and Lunch person. And so it's kind of fun to be on this side and not to have to self-introduce myself, which is great. This does say 1929. You know, you gotta love technology. It shows 1929 on my screen, but we don't know what's happening there. So it does really, we are going to get to 1929. I do have a lot of slides and a lot of information, so I'm going to get going. I had a cold 2 weeks ago, and I still have some congestion, so that's why I got a cough drop in my mouth. Okay, so I was inspired to do this program. I've always kind of joked that I get to do a lot of great history, but I don't get to necessarily do the history I want to do, which is clothes and which is fashion. Because there's other things more important to learn, like Japanese incarceration and Black history in Arkansas. But I picked up a copy of this book because I follow Lisa Hodgkins on social media, on Instagram, and I highly recommend, she's everyday fashion. I highly recommend that you follow her as well. But I picked up this book and I started looking through this and I thought, I can do this with the stuff from the Butler Center. So Hodgkins says, fashion has always played a role in how others see us. And I would actually revise that statement to say clothes have always played a role in how others see us and how we see ourselves. I mean, you're more confident when you're wearing something that, you know, like really puts a punch, right? So using Hodgkin's work as a jumping off point, my question is, what were Arkansas women wearing, and were they on trend for the fashion of the time? So the Butler Center for Arkansas Study has thousands of photographs of women, and we're not going to look at all of them, I promise. We could, but we're not. And all of these women, you will be very glad to know, are wearing clothes. Many of the portraits, many of the photos that I'm going to show you are portraits, and they're wearing their Sunday best. So you need to start with that. Like, these are their best clothes that you're going to see. They're putting their best foot forward. But we do have some candid snapshots of women in everyday clothes. So obviously, I couldn't show you every single photograph as much as I would like to. So I had to set up some parameters. The project solely focuses on women. I could do a separate program on men, and I could do a separate program on children, but this is just women. And really, honestly, women's fashion changes more. The date range is 1850 to 1929. 1850 because this is the first photograph that I could find in the collection of a woman wearing clothes. And the end date is 1929, partly because I just needed an end date, but also after 29, fashion radically changes for the rest of the 20th century. But I did just have to really stop somewhere. And I probably could stop in 1900, but why? Full-length images were ideal. If I could find a full-length portrait, that was the goal. But there were a lot of kind of, waist up photos that just were too good. They showed too much of the perfect fashion for that period. So I did use those at times. I tried to ignore blurry photos, although I do include one, because no matter how wonderful the clothes, if you can't see them, really, what's the point? The same with small images. If you can't make out the details, or they're hard to see, there's really not much point. I did try to use the best examples of the fashion trends to show, if I had several examples, I tried to pick the best one. So how did I know what to look for? So I searched the Butler Center collection, both the digital collections, which are online at arstudies.org. I've always had trouble with that. For 8 years, I've struggled with that. But I also looked in finding aids, because we have a lot of stuff digitized, but not everything is digitized. So I went through all the finding aids, and I looked for words like portrait and carte de vie, cabinet card, photograph, and then I sub-searched, thanks to mainly Danielle and Anna Lancaster, who showed me how to do this, woman and women, to really hone in on what I was looking for. So armed with a spreadsheet with 58 collections, and I will admit, I have like 5 more to go through, and I haven't. So technically there were 58 collections that matched the criteria. I started going through them and looking at photographs, and some of the folks who work the desk that are in the room, Emily in particular, can say that I would open a box and look at it and go, nope, thanks, and move on, because there wasn't anything in there. So I looked at 477 items. Now, sometimes these are going to be folders with multiple items. Sometimes it's going to be a photo album or a scrapbook. And sometimes it's truly going to be a single item in a folder. So 202 items met the criteria that I previously mentioned. Okay, so where do we get our ideas of what historic fashion is? TVs and movies are where most of us are getting our idea of what 19th and late 20th or early 20th century fashion is. So here are some examples of some very famous costumes that are wonderful as costumes, but they're not exactly historically accurate. And I apologize in advance for upending any of your fantasies about these movies. But just think about it. Now you can watch it better informed. You can love them as costumes, But you can also go, that's wrong. Gone with the Wind. Oh, what a great offender. The green dress that she wears to the that Scarlett wears to the Wilkes' garden party is just wrong. No shoulders showing in the daytime. I'm sorry. The red dress, which is set to defy all kinds of things, dress culture, society. This is her rebellion dress, if we're taking from the 90s and Princess Diana. This is Scarlett's rebellion dress, revenge dress. It's just wrong historically. It's really Hollywood, not history. Mia Farrow as Daisy Buchanan in the 1974 Great Gatsby. It's a great movie. This is 1970s inspired by 1920s, not really 1920s. The Pride and Prejudice from 1940. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. We may have a copy. Actually look at it. You can also probably check it out at the library. This book is published, this subject material is from the 1830s, right? So the costumes are 1840, 1850s because they looked better on Greer Garson than the up-here waist styles of 20 years before. I put this one in here because I hope that other people remember how terrible it was. The 1987 Napoleon and Josephine love story. I'm not sure that the costume designer actually looked at a portrait of Josephine to come up with these costumes. But the number one worst offender in my mind, and I love it, I love this miniseries, the 1980s Patrick Swayze Civil War miniseries, North and South. This is cleavage in the daytime, dynasty hair and jewelry, plus more peach than in the entirety of the 19th century. Peach was not a popular color, but I know people remember peach was the color in the 80s. So, these are offenders. But what do we have that survives? Well, we have museums that have costume collections that we can look at and see what survived. But the problem with these is that they were often only worn once or maybe twice. They didn't wear out. So you're looking at high fashion, haute couture, the clothes of royalty, the aristocracy, and in America, the Astors, the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers. So you're looking at clothes that really were only worn once. And oftentimes, we as historians, we have to deal with the issue of people were smaller back then. And that's a whole nother talk for a whole nother day. But most of these clothes are smaller, but the people weren't necessarily smaller. That's just what we have left over. Like they couldn't be handed down. They couldn't be reworked. So we end up with these smaller garments. So what did people wear every day? So this lady, who doesn't look very happy to have her portrait taken, is what I think to be the oldest image of a woman in clothes at the Butler Center. So she's listed as unidentified woman wrapped in a wool blanket. And this is from the Keith Connor family collection. It's an ambrotype, which is comprised of an underexposed glass negative placed on a dark background and put in a case. And the finding aid dates it from 1848 to 1853. So I don't know what she's wearing under the wool blanket. I can guess. But her cap is a very popular cap style for married women, particularly in the first 3/4 of the 19th century. And it's probably cotton. It's got kind of these interesting pleats on it. So this is the oldest image. So this is where I got the 1850 date. I had to have some place to start. Yeah, it worked. Okay, so if you could see what the lady's wearing underneath her blanket, it would be a silhouette probably a lot like this. So these fashion plates are from one of the many ladies magazines that were available. So women in Arkansas would have known what the trends were. They were going to get these magazines and they were going to see what New York and Paris and London were wearing. So the 1850 silhouette, it's a wide shoulder, it's a slender waist, and it's a full skirt. It's not a hoop yet. This is not as big as it's going to get. It's going to get big. The waist from the 1840s to the 1850s, the waist is going to come up just a little bit. It was not quite a drop waist, but kind of a drop waist. So it's going to come up a little bit, and again, the skirt is going to be full because of petticoats and crinolines. Again, not a hoop. And these tiny waists are created by a corset, tight-laced. Not as tight as it's going to get, but tight. And they're made out of, usually at this point, whalebone. Metal stays have not come in. We haven't figured that out yet. So we're using whalebone at this point. So this image is from the Smith family papers. It's the 1856 graduating class of Science Hill Academy in Shelbyville, Kentucky. And there's at least 3 women, yes, Ellen, Kentucky, at least 3 women who are from Arkansas in this picture. And let me tell you that, because I can't not say anything about Katherine Breckinridge and anything I talk about, and Daniel loves that. But his video's like, why are you pick on me? The people from Arkansas to Kentucky and North Louisiana to Kentucky, they were going those places a lot, back and forth all the time. This was not like, we weren't just out in the middle of the wilderness. There was a lot of transportation to and from and to and from. So this was not unheard of. So these women are going to school in Kentucky. Okay, so now let's get to the actual clothes. They are completely on trend for 1850s. Cinched bodices. So a cinched bodice has pleats that are coming in and making that look. And the woman here on the far left, where I've cinched waist, that's giving that look. She's got, it's curved in, as well as her corset making that look. The shoulders are off the natural shoulder by about an inch, giving it width. You're making yourself wider. And the waists are narrow. So you're getting this hourglass. Full hoops, full skirts, not hoops. Lace collars with cameos and brooches to keep them attached. And pagoda sleeves, which are there on the far right. It's a wide sleeve, and then underneath it is a length of cotton sleeve that's attached and easily detachable for laundering. The most important thing about this photo is the prints. These geometric prints and these plaids, these what we might call loud prints. And if you put on your 1850s glasses and you see color, you're going to see bright color. You're going to see maybe some pastels, but you're going to see bright colors. You're going to see the color of Jennifer Chilco. Jennifer, raise your hand. You're going to see the color of her shirt. You're going to see a brighter green than that. You're going to see a green and a black plaid. These are not muted colors. This is bright. So what you're seeing oftentimes in museums as a muted color from this time period is because it's faded. So bright colors, some pastels, bright jewel tones, bright colors. Okay, 1850 to 1860. So we're going to get into the 1860s, and we're about to, the hoop is come to America, and we are going to have our Carol Burnett moments of trying to get condorays. So, exaggerated proportions. The shoulders of the bodice are still off the shoulder. The waist is still cinched in with corsets and stays, but the introduction of the cage hoop allows the skirt to extend to its widest proportion. And I'm talking like this, okay? So if you keep your arms in and you put your arms out, that's where your hoop's going to hit. They're creating this optical illusion. Again, the waist has got to look as small as possible, so optical illusion. And we have lots and lots of cabinet cards in the collection and in albums of 1860s dress. So I had a hard time choosing because this is one of my favorite periods. So I just put a lot up there. I think it's safe to assume that most of these women are wearing their best dress. They're getting their formal portrait done, for lack of better words, and they are wearing their best dress. They're also, most women are only going to own 2 to 3 dresses. That's their whole wardrobe. I mean, we've all got closets full of clothes. They're dealing with 1 or 2 dresses, even the most elite. So this is their finest. So the photos on the left, we're still in the petticoat crinoline phase. These are probably older women. They probably haven't updated their wardrobe. They're fine not to have to deal with that hoop. The women on the right are all wearing the hoop. And you can see it has different widths depending on the lady, but they're pretty big. So the cage hoop was introduced in 1846, but it really doesn't catch on until the 1860s. Which has always been odd to me because this takes more fabric and it's wartime, but okay. So 1860 to 1890, the hoop is going to increase in circumference from basically what we would think of as a full A-line to a full ball gown, for those of you who watch Say Yes to the Dress. So here's a photo of Laura A. Lejeune, and it's from a photo album in the Paul Dahl Civil War collection. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Apologize to any of his descendants. And the one next to it is a caged hoop and the collection of the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. And this is dated 1865. So not only, yes?
You're taking questions now, you want us to hold them
till the end, yes. Because I'll never get through all my slides, but thanks. So this is from 1865, and you can see this is a side angle. So it protrudes more in the back and on the sides than in the front, but there's still, you've kind of got a sweeping lawn in the front. And you can see from her photo that the hoop is going beyond the shoulders again. Outside of truly, Carol Burnett had it right. So in my opinion, this is the best example of 1860s, true 1860s dress that we have in the collection. This is Anne Archer Brandon from the Turpin Archer Lejeune family album. Her dress is off the shoulders, but just off the shoulders, so the shoulders come back up a little bit, but it's still kind of like a cap sleeve. She's got these narrow sleeves that have a slight protrusion here at the elbow, small waist, full skirt. She's got these little beaded details, a button placket. The buttons don't work, most likely. She's being laced up the back, but the buttons are there as a detail. So with few dresses in your wardrobe, the outer garment was not laundered very often. And I promise, they smelled, but they didn't smell that bad. So the number of undergarments that you're wearing between the outer garment and the body could be up to 16.
16.
They're all thin fabric, y'all, so it's not like, but it is. It's 16 layers. We used to joke when I worked at the old State House and we did the 1860 striptease that by the time we got down to our bodies, we still had 3 layers on. So they're not laundering their outer garments, but their skin isn't touching their outer garment. But what is touching their skin are collars and sleeves. And so those are detachable, interchangeable. They're being laundered more frequently. They're easier to purchase. Sometimes they're even being made when they're doing their own lace work. Okay, so the most interesting find from this period is this woman here on the end. Her stripe is fabulous. But the really cool thing is this is a maternity dress. So she has on a special corset that allows for her expanding belly, and the fabric begins to pile up in the front. So she's still in style, she's still on trend while carrying a baby. Okay, so the 1870s, everything's getting slimmer, things are going to the back, it's tightening up. Lots of ruffles, lots of flounces. So Arkansas women are right on trend with the fashion plate you just saw. At least the ladies that I found or that have found their way into the Butler Center collection. So here are 4 examples of 1870s. We have the bustle on the left, the princess dress, striped fabric, and a round hat. So the lady on the left is wearing the typical yards of fabric, pleated ruffles, button placket, bustle in the back. This is most likely 22 to 23 yards of fabric to create this look. Most of the time, you're going to see people in 2-piece garments. But the princess dress from the 1870s is a 1-piece garment, and that's the woman sitting or standing behind her husband. This is Miss L.W. Patterson, formerly Mrs. Boyd, is what the finding aid says. And she's wearing a princess dress with an asymmetrical kind of swoop here. It probably has buttons that we can't really see, but it is a 1-piece garment. Striped fabric is always on trend. If you're wearing stripes, even now, you're good. And the woman in the striped dress is got a bow and a collar, so that's a little bit of a holdover from the previous decade, but she's on trend. And these round hats, these are both the same lady here on the right. The round hat, she probably did her own rose detail there in the front, and she's got a bolero jacket that's open facing. So, 1870s, the skirt gets slimmer. Not as slim as it's going to get, but it gets slimmer. So we go from, the widest to slimming down. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. 1869 to 1870 doesn't make this transition. It's going to take some years to go that length. The natural shoulder comes back. Shoulders go back to their upright and natural position. Waist is still small. We're using ruching and ruffles. And if you can embellish it and do a whole lot. This would be the rhinestone, of the century. Like, just get as much as you can on your outfit and you're good. There's no subtracting here. So 1880, slimming a little bit more, cinching in really tight lacing that waist, that corset, but you're getting more of an hourglass figure, and that kind of stays the same, right? We just keep seeing hourglass in various forms. Skin tight sleeves, high collars, boned bodices, and bustles that are molded into slimmer columns. So the bustle gets a little bit smaller. So Arkansas middle-class women, both black and white, are following the trends that they see in the ladies' magazines and other periodicals. And wore those trends by sitting for their portraits. This is when portrait studios really explode. They're in all kinds of little places. And so people are showing up to have their photo taken. So on the left, these are members of the Field family, and they are wearing form-fitting dresses with lace collars and cuffs, button plackets, and ruffles and flounces. In the middle is a woman at Arsenic Spring in Eureka Springs. Now, this is my blurry photo. This is my one exception. She's blurry, but you can see enough of what she's wearing to make the blurry not as egregious, I guess. So this is what I would call a walking outfit, which has kind of remembrances of 1870, but I'd really date this photo to 1860. The skirt appears to have Van Dyke pleats, which are rectangular panels, and the bodice has a peplum as well as military style accents. You can barely see them, but there's 3 stripes across with buttons. And on the far right is an image from the Pulaski County Black History Photograph Collection. And the skirt is a little, their dresses are a little bit looser. They're not quite as tight, but the woman in the center has box pleats of different sizes on her skirt, and she's also got kind of a double skirt going on. She has an overskirt over, she's got really narrow pleats, and then fatter pleat box pleats, and then another overskirt. And a long lace collar that you see on both here on the left and the right, that longer lace collar became very popular. So these 3 images are all from the Miller-Rotkin family collection, and I hope I'm saying their name right too. The first image highlights the menswear images or menswear elements that become part of 1880. So there was a designer, his name was John Redfern, and he made tailor-made sportswear for women. Now, do not think athleisure. Okay, there's a corset involved. There's a lot of fabric involved. So, but this woman here on the left, she's got a notched lapel, very much like we would see in menswear today. The dress in the middle is a much more feminine, what I would call a feminine silhouette, not directed towards menswear. This is probably a graduation dress. White graduation dresses were really popular and still are popular in some schools. Lots of lace, lots of ruffles. And then the woman on the far right, this is what I would call tailor-made. And that's actually a style. This is this walking suit, this Redfern walking suit. So tailor is Tailor, made. And it has lots of notes to menswear fabrics. You're seeing this in tweeds and in other woven wools, but lots of menswear details. So, we do have a lot of portraits, and it's hard to fill up slides with portraits and not look at something candid. From this period in the collection, most of the images are going to be portraits, but this woman, this African American woman, is hanging laundry, and she is wearing working clothes. They're probably made out of rough-hewn cloth, but lower, poorer whites would be wearing the same type of outfit. So you kind of have, you have to take the fancy portraits and the best dress with what was really being worn at all levels. And unfortunately, because people didn't have, and now it's not going to do it, because money was an issue. Having the clothes, being able to do a portrait was a problem. And so, looking at folks that this is just a true image of what somebody in Arkansas would have looked like. Let's see if I can make it new. Oh, really? Are you going to be that way, Canva? So I knew I knew I shouldn't have made those transitions. Okay. So in the 1890s, which I could talk about for days and days and days because I know more about the 1890s than anything else, but I promise I won't. We're talking dramatic proportions, and I think you can all envision leg of mutton sleeves. You've all seen them. They're huge. They're coming out. They're just massive. And also a gored skirt. So let's do this since you're not going to play along, Canva. Let's see here. really gonna play along. Okay, so the lady in the middle, in the beige color, those are modified leg of mutton. The woman on the far right in kind of the reddish color, those are high shoulder sleeves. And so from 1890 to 1893, you're gonna see kind of small, slightly puffy cap sleeves to these high neck sleeves is what they called them. And so that gives you an idea of what women would have been wearing. Let's see if I can make it. Why is it gotta ignore all the 1890s? I mean, that's just. Well, there's a board skirt and a high neck and some ruche and some ruffles there. Okay, here we go. So, shirt waists. These are called shirt waists, and they're basically menswear shirts, but we call them shirt waists. I really don't know why. But women wore them in all different colors and styles and patterns, and they wore them often with a gored skirt, which is a paneled skirt. There was often a belt that accompanied it. Detachable collars are still a thing because even though, I mean, they've still got several layers of undergarments on, they don't want to have to launder these a whole lot. And see, now it leaves one out. Okay, so leg of mutton. Here we go. These are the big ones. This is late decade, so this is 1896 to 1900. Generally, it's going to be younger women that embrace this trend. But you're going to get large sleeves supported by either canvas underneath or some kind of stuffing. In some cases, for the really big ones, you're going to have a wire support underneath there, which I cannot imagine is simple. And so here you can see with the lady that was supposed to be in the middle and is now on the right, you can see she's got her shirt waist on and she's got a skirt. She's got some kind of belt on. She's got a small straw hat. So that gives you an idea. But this is probably the best example of 1890s. This is most likely a graduation outfit. She's doing it all. She's got the pearls, she's got the lace, she's got the bows, and she's got the floral print with the big sleeves. Not really sure what's going on with her hair there, because that's not on trend at all, but she is, clothes-wise, she is on trend. So, in 1900, turn of the century, you get the S bend. And this is supposed to look this way. This is how women walked around. They had a special corset. It pushed the torso forward and the hips back. And it's often referred to as the Gibson girl because Charles Dana Gibson did some satirical sketches of it. But yes, this is called the S bend. And here are some not quite S bends, but you know, they're trying to get there. They're just, I can't imagine it would be comfortable. So these are not as pronounced as the fashion plate before, but you can still see under the silky chiffon that there's some curve going on. So not everything is white, light, and ethereal in the 1900s. But that seems to be what shows up on you know, fashion blogs and things like that. Darker colors are still popular when accented with lighter lace and ribbons. But also know when you look at photos, when you look at black and white photographs, and I meant to say this before, when you look at black and white photographs, do not automatically assume that they are wearing black. They are not all in mourning. They were not having a horrible time. They were probably wearing red and purple and dark green, but in a black and white photograph, it translates to a dark color, and then our brains go, that's black. So this is just, so, you know, try to see a rainbow here of different colors. So disappointing that color photography didn't come around sooner. And while the proportions slimmed and tightened from the neck down, the hats got bigger. And they were supposed to get bigger to offset literally offset the woman's balance, like so that she, you know, had something, I guess, some proportion here. The woman in the strip here, in the photo strip, yes, she has a whole taxidermy bird on her tail. Yes, this is feathers here. I don't know what is going on with the woman on the right. That's a feather. Really, I can't even explain it. But I do get Mary Poppins the book, not Julie Andrews, out of this. So yeah, hats just got that, not as big as they're gonna get, but they're getting there. Lots of flowers. So this is a family from Oil Trough, Arkansas. These are cotton pickers from 1908. Again, these are the poorer, the lower classes, and they are wearing clothes that they may have bought at the mercantile. It's not the greatest fabric, and it's getting handed down and reused over and over again. These don't end up in museum collections. That's why we don't see them. That's why we don't know that they existed unless we have the photographs. Once they're handed down and they're really unusable, they haven't been reworked into some other outfit of some sort or collar, then they get made into rags. So they're using the material until the very, very end. Yay, okay, wait, please do it. There we go, okay. So 1910, the teens, so gone are the hardline corsets. There's still a corset there. There's still gonna be a corset there until the 40s, really, well, 30s, early 30s. But it's not as hard. We're not tight lacing. We've started to realize that that might be a health problem, and maybe we should stop doing that. So everything gets a little bit loose. On the left is Rebecca Narkinski outside of 515 Rock Street in Little Rock, and she is wearing a dark suit. This is probably black. With a relaxed waist and an ankle-length hem. So we're going to show our ankles for the first time in a long time, in like 100 years. And then next you have Blanche Bailey at the Ostrich Farm in Hot Springs. If you don't know about the Ostrich Farm in Hot Springs, you need to go to arkansasstudies.com and Google ostrich. There are people writing. She is wearing a walking suit with a menswear inspired long jacket and oversized boots. Not boots, buttons. She does have on boots. The third photo is from the Miller Rotkin collection. And this is a shirtwaist outfit with a double hem, shorter sleeves, and a hem that falls just above the ankles. And then on the far right is from the Blake family collection, and I would call this a tea dress, which was a dress worn in the afternoon. It's got a fabulous sailor collar, long sleeves, a double button at the waist, a double set of buttons at the waist, and I would call this calf length, but she's got on boots that come up past her calf, so she's actually not showing her ankle. So she's getting away with it that way. Candid photos become much more popular between 1910 and 1919. So we're going to see a lot more candid photographs. The three ladies here on the left are all from the Charles Thompson collection, and they are in shirt waists. Then we have Mamie and Ruth Narkinski, again, at 515 Rock Street, which I've got to drive by and see if it still exists. But the woman, I think the woman on the right in their picture it says Anne Friend. I think that's Anne Friend. She is really giving it because she's got, calf length. That is a super short skirt for this time period. The two women here that says traveling outfit. So they're at a scenic overlook. It literally says that in the finding aid. I didn't make that up. They're at a scenic overlook, and they have probably driven there in an open car. And the woman on the left it looks like she's wearing sunglasses. She might be wearing driving glasses, which is a super cool find. And then we have more shirt waists. The woman there at the end that says large hats or large hat, that is Carla Rutland. And she is wearing a fabulous wrapped type of, so I know what she's got on the bottom. I can see the whole outfit in my head. But her two-tone collar and trim, I mean, she's spot on. This outfit here, you can see here, much clearer over there. That's called a pigeon-fronted bodice, and they were very popular. So anytime you see someone kind of with a puffed out place right there in the chest, it's called a pigeon-fronted bodice. And then we've got some great examples of car coats. This is, the advent of the automobile. And so these long car coats that women and men were wearing as part of this new pastime. So by the end of the decade, things are beginning to shorten up and get even more relaxed. These are just great photos of late 1910s, maybe 1920s dresses. Okay, so we finally made it to the 20s, and I'm really long on time. I'm really sorry. There was a lot to cover. Should have cut off a decade. But, I mean, when you think of the 1920s, you have an image in your mind. I know you do, because it is the most mythologized decade of fashion in the 20th century. And so when you're thinking of the 1920s, you are not thinking of our fashion plates, you're thinking of the flapper. Where is the flapper? Well, here's what an Arkansas flapper looks like. And you're going, no, that's not a flapper. But yes, it is. So the flapper that you have in your head, again, I'm so sorry, is the extreme. It's not what Arkansas women were wearing, although this is pretty risque. That's a lot of leg. There's some shoulder there. So this is a big deal, but this kind of gives you an idea of, we've got demure, our favorite word, right? We've got demure over here, and she is out for a good time, right? With her beating. So, hems at or above the knee. But your average everyday person is going to look like this. Not going to a party, going to church, going to lunch, working in a store in Earle, Arkansas. That's the Boston store in Earle, Arkansas. Great oversized drop waist sweaters. So this is where the drop waist comes in. We've got lighter fabrics, less underpinnings. Okay, so this woman right here, who was terribly unhappy to be having her picture made, has got maybe the best dress in the whole collection that I could find. So she is on trend. She is drop waist. I mean, she's in a bad mood, but she's drop waist. She's got a great collar. She has this beautiful plaque of cloth that hides the buttons underneath. She's got long sleeves, but man, she's pissed off. And then here you've got, these are some other kind of relaxed styles. The sailor look is still on trend. So this is Addie McDuffie Simpson, and I love this photo with all of my being. She's standing in a flooded street in 1927 in Montrose, Arkansas. So she's got her rain boots and her cotton drop waist dress. I mean, she is fashionable in the middle of a flooded street. Wide brim hat. She, destruction all around her, but she is stylish. So wrap up to, in conclusion, Arkansas women survived much in the 80 years that we've covered, not the least of which were the fashion trends that changed from year to year and decade to decade, all while raising children, nursing the sick, surviving a couple of wars, the Civil War and then those other outside conflicts, playing sports in corsets, fighting for causes that they were passionate about. So I hope that the photos that I've shown you from the Butler Center show you that Arkansas women were in fact on trend for the fashion of the day. There is one more quick slide. So I did make a list of books that if you'd like to read or read more about it, you can go to the QR code. We can also email you this link. This is a list of the books that we have in our collection. Plus, they have ordered Hodgkin's book, the one that inspired me to do this. They've ordered it for the collection. It should be here next week, so go ahead and get on hold for that. But you can also get it through Mobius, which is a nice interlibrary loan type service we have. So, okay.
We'll go to questions now.
I just wanted to know, with those hoop skirts, how they use the bathroom.
Very, very carefully. That's always great, because I always wondered that when I was watching Little House on the Prairie. They never went to the bathroom. They had an outhouse. You saw it, but they had lots of people. They had lots of slaves to help them go to the bathroom. And so, yes. So I don't know. It was a chamber pot. I do know that. But I don't know the exact mechanics. I will say that from working at the old state house and having to dress out in a costume, it is a challenge with modern plumbing. So, yes. Very good question, though. Yes, Susan.
I wondered in those last pictures, when did they design the garage? Because there's such drooping going on to these.
I mean, maybe that's her problem. So the brassiere comes around in the 30s and really the 40s is when the brassiere comes along. Yes. So they're wearing some kind of, I mean, it's a long, they've got something with shoulder straps and some length here, but what we think of as the bra or the brassiere comes along in the next decade. Yes. Courtney. Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm
Like Ellen, I always love a microphone. So my question goes back to the 1850 photo of all the girls who were at the school, and I noticed, I mean, obviously there's a lot of plaid, so there was a lot of migration from Ireland and Scotland, places that had family plaids. Do you see any of that in the 1850s?
This is fashion plaid.
Okay.
This is fashion plaid in all its. I mean, there probably was some tartan going on, but this has nothing to do with genealogy or your ancestors or your legacy. These are bright colors. I mean, this would be the photo I would want colorized. I would want somebody to take time to colorize this, because I just wish you could see what I see. It is just the brightest possible. They wouldn't have called it neon. You would look at it and go, that is neon. So.
On Zoom from Candace, we have, how did women deal with Arkansas humidity in these especially when pregnant and or menstruating?
You wore the clothes. We live in such a casual time where we can wear jeans to work and stuff like that, and our comfort is paramount. Comfort was not a thought to these women. I mean, they were miserable, I'm sure, but no, they were wearing the clothes. And I don't know. I have that. The menstruation question that's a whole nother historian with a whole nother talk. Yes.
They used rags.
They did use rags, yes.
So that was their way of handling it.
Yes.
And then as far as the boobs go, I believe that they had what we would call the inserts. And so it wasn't like a fixed bra, but they would put an insert in the bodies.
Yes.
Where the boobs are.
Yes.
And they probably sunk because it wasn't like holstered.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It wasn't holstered, yeah. So there was something to put there. We just didn't call it a bra, I think.
Yeah. So a corset comes up to here, and it has shape. And there's, I mean, as you go through the 80 years, there's moments where the uniboob appears, especially in 1900. It is more of a uniformed across the chest. But yes, there, and then there are some under boob corsets that have a support like what she was talking about. Truly, undergarments is a whole nother like talk.
2026 follow-up undergarments.
That's a different person. Really.
Dr. Harris on Zoom asks, at what point in time were women's clothes constructed at home, or were they purchased from dress stores? Did that change over time?
So that is one thing that I do neglect to really talk about in this talk, and that is where I'd like to explore some more. So they were there. It was all of the above. Some women were making things at home. Some women were having clothes made for them by slaves or servants. Some women were going to a dressmaker. It partly depends on the outfit or the garment that you were needing, and it also depended on the amount of money that they had. And at some point when Sears Roebuck comes along, they're ordering fabric and patterns and then eventually ready-made garments. Dora had a question.
Yeah, there's
Oh, sorry, Dora. Sorry, Dora.
Do you want to ask your question before you walk out the door, Dora?
In Calvert, Texas, back in the time period when I first started teaching, I was able to attend a very, very, very small museum. It was like the size of this room. And they had one dress and the netting that went under the hoops, but it was not round at the base. It was kind of wide on the sides and flat in the front and the back with, the train and bustle and things like that on it. I had not seen that,
That sounds very French and very 1790 to me.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, how
Where
far
was this
back
museum?
that would have gone.
Where was the museum?
This was in Calvert, Texas, which is north of College Station, Texas, where Texas A&M is, and south of Waco. Just right in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, no, the wings, the hoop with the wings and the flat fronts and the slight bustled back, that's very 1780, 1790. Sometimes museums get given things, I don't know particularly about that museum, but sometimes museums get given things and they put them on display without a whole lot of context.
And I wouldn't have known if they put the context there and could not remember what it was, whether they may have, had a plantation or something in the middle of Texas.
Yeah.
Probably.
There were definitely plantations in that part of Texas.
Well, I think we're about out of time. Sorry, our questions are a little short today, but Heather is going to stick around for a minute after, so you might be able to, run her at the end of the talk. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending Legacies and Lunch today. If you want to support programs like this, please donate to the Butler Center at robertslibrary.org and join us here at Eli Little Rock downtown next month for Dr. Marta Chislak's For Complicated Relationships, Commonwealth College, Socialism in the American South. And we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.